Hello and welcome back for another episode. Today, I'd like to talk about my experiences working at a mental hospital, things I've learned, things I've observed, things I expected, things that happened out of the blue. I'm going to talk about it all. And I've been at a mental hospital for several months now, and so far, I actually like it. I enjoy it compared to the other jobs I used to work. I like working in healthcare, but working at a mental hospital can be freaky as hell and very wild and very dangerous for a multitude of reasons. The first day when I started training, I was pretty overwhelmed, not gonna lie. They put me on like the highest acute unit. There's so many other units. Most of them are adults, and the other ones are like kids units from like teens to little kids, just a couple years old to 10 and whatnot. And then you got early teens and later teens. And then you have all sorts of adults and a bunch of other units. You got veterans and whatnot. You have people who are suicidal. You got people who just have addiction problems. They have like specific units for that. And then you have like really, really fucked up patients. Like, um, they're like super far gone mentally, um, schizophrenics and all that. And those are the higher units. The ones that like talk to themselves, the ones that lash out, the ones that see things, they hear things. So on my first day, they put me on the highest acute unit. And yeah, like I said, I was overwhelmed. Um, I was just taking it all in. There were so many people in the day room, and they were just yelling, like no, nothing, just like to themselves. They were just yelling at themselves. They were pacing back and forth very rapidly. I had to make sure I was like out of their way so they didn't run into me. And they'd just be like crying and like having full on conversations with themselves. And like they'd be like, "Hey, can I use the phone?" We give them the phone, and then they just make a phone call to like a loved one. And like they would just talk forever, rapid speech, nonstop, and just start crying like, "I need to get out of here, please help me," or not. Like I'm not feeling good. It was just really, really sad to see. And they were just like zombies. They just zombified. It's so sad. They even kind of looked like zombies. They just looked like total shit. They looked like trash. They would they would crap themselves. They would vomit. Um, they would hit each other for no reason. I'll be like walking by, and they're just like slowly walking, like they don't just give each other like one wrong look. And these patients could like not know each other, but they would just give each other one dirty look, and then boom, they just like smack each other and punch each other as hard as they can. All the staff and the techs have to come out and break it up and restrain people for like no reason. Um, they'll like attack you too, so you got to watch out for that. Um, they'll be like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" And then you go try to help them, and they'll literally attack you. Sometimes they'll try to kill you and strangle you. Uh, One thing I learned is like you can't attack them. You can defend yourself, but the thing about working at a mental hospital is like you gotta when you're trained under like some specific protocol, and it's not good at all, but it's for legal reasons. It's like partnership legal reasons. And if you don't do that, then you can get fired. So I try my best to follow that. But I do MMA and jujitsu, and I have for a long time. So I just go with my gut, but I never like attack. I like just hold and defend. It seems like every week you get in like a very violent situation, um, where like you have to restrain someone. They will spit on you. Patients will spit. They will bite. They will sometimes throw piss and shit on you, and they will literally try to beat you whenever you're not looking. So you always have to watch your back, even if you're talking to someone else or you're giving like, if you're like facilitating a group. Sometimes they'll come up behind you and like punch you in the head for no reason. They might just not like the way you look. Maybe like in their mind, you remind them of someone, or like a hallucination that's like demonic, but they'll just do it, you know? They're like really far gone. Um, yeah, I've like had to deal with all that. Luckily, I haven't been like punched, but almost everyone I know has been punched. I'm not trying to jinx myself, but I have been attacked. Um, and you know, when we restrain them, we hold them down like a bunch of people, and if they don't cooperate, we give them a shot so that they just chill out. And it's quite an experience. What else? Sometimes like the patients have like really funny stories. Like even though they're really far gone, they just like say some funny shit. Um, and it's weird how like you could enjoy the conversation with some of them. You wouldn't expect it, but like I always think of it like this. They're like it's sort of like if you take an edible or like a hallucinogenic substance and you're tripping and you say like some crazy stuff or you hear stuff and you see stuff. But like that's what they're going through, but it's 24/7 and there's no coming down. So you can kind of get a feel of what they're going through, the sense of paranoia, you know, things that aren't there and whatnot. When it comes to coworkers at a mental hospital, they're like they're basically like anywhere else. That's what I've learned. I've worked in like several other fields, but like these coworkers are all the same. Like the supervisors are always on your ass. They're always like monitoring you. And like that's about everything. And then the nurses like work really hard, but some of them are trash. Some of them are like super frail and just talk a bunch of crap behind other coworkers and whatnot. And like the techs, the mental health techs, they are pretty good as well. They're like the frontline infantry type. They're in there with the patients 24/7. The nurses and supervisors are more like in their office, in their units, um, but they will come out on the floor to help every now and then. And there's just so much gossip that goes around, which is pretty annoying. But there's like a lot of sitting around sometimes, especially like overnight when the patients are asleep. There's just a bunch of sitting around, and patient or coworkers just talk about each other, and it's like that high school petty stuff that you'll never escape. Um, these patients do stuff like every day. They see therapists every day. They have group activities every day, and they journal. They hang out with each other every day. They smoke. But see a lot of repeats. You know, someone will come in, they'll leave, and then maybe like a couple months later, they'll come back in. And I've seen that so many times. And, like, I don't know if like they're like, well, clearly, like, I don't think a lot of these places actually give them help because like they're so far gone and damaged that like it's almost like a homeless shelter for them. It's like a babysitting spot. It's like a daycare for mentally insane. That's what it is. A lot of these employees are like security guards there. They're like babysitters. They're hall monitors, and they just got to be there to like help them. That's really what it is. What kind of sucks about my hospital right now is like there are no security guards, which is pretty insane. When I found that out, I was like, all right, well, it's whatever, because people will escape every now and then. Patients will escape. They'll escape in the dark, in the day, when they go out for like smoke break or, outside activity time. Some of them will just run, make a run for it. Most of them fail. But every now and then, if there's like female workers, they're like not going to try to stop a patient from escaping. They're afraid of whatever. They'll just like call a code on the radio, and they'll like jump these fences. And sometimes we'll be like in the middle of the night. I'm like, well, y'all should have security guards, patrolling that could help out instead of just like us. They call it elopement, which is like the risk of escape. These patients are sneaky. They sneak in so much stuff, forbidden contraband stuff. They communicate with each other, even through other units. They're really smart and sneaky. And you always have to like keep an eye out for that. The kids units are my least favorite. They're like not as violent as the adults, but they're so noisy, like constant yelling and noise. It's like being in hell. And like they'll say mean stuff. Adults say mean stuff too, but the kids just like they say more mean stuff because they're not as physical. They can't be as physical. They can't overpower the adults. And like so far I've seen some like pretty crazy stuff. Patients trying to kill themselves. I like walked in on a patient's room and she was banging her head on the wall, and she ripped open a scab on her head, and just blood was leaking from her face all the way down to the wall, all the way down to the floor, and all over her face. She just kept on doing it, and I could see the scab become all mushy and like stick with her hair and whatnot. It was just so disgusting, and I had to deal with that. This one patient, this teenager, was like, "Hey, you let me in the bathroom. I gotta take a dump." And I'm like, all right, whatever. I didn't really trust him. And I didn't really work on the kids' units that much, so I didn't know what was going on. But one of the other kids told me, hey, he sometimes tries to kill himself. So I went in right away, and I saw him strangling himself with a shirt. And we just had a bunch of guys come in and like hold him down, and then we gave him a shot and stuff. His face was like all purple. He was like almost there. And a lot of yelling and screaming. There's like a lot of like false claims, like guys and girls, these patients will say like, oh, these workers raped me. They did this and touched me like a certain way. Granted, we have cameras, so we don't really believe them. But when that happens, we kind of like just swap workers. We'll swap workers to make the patient feel more comfortable and like avoid a bunch of drama and whatnot. Um, that's about it so far. Those are my experiences so far. I might learn more, I might not, but yeah, working in a psychiatric ward is one hell of an experience. Requires a lot of patience. It requires physical strength too to fight off patients, defend your life. Um, my place, one thing I realized is like there's a lot of like feminine energy there. Even the guys, they require like a lot of like gay guys, or no, not require. They hire they, they hire like a lot of women too. I'm not sure why that is, but it doesn't really help because they all complain about the physical aspect of the job. They're restraining. They're not physically capable of like restraining a person. Um, they always get assaulted. All the employees get hit. They get assaulted. They get concussions. Their hair yanked. You know, punched in the face, and they're frail. Some of them are old. Some of them are very small. Some of them are young. They're like really brittle, and like they need more like stronger employees there. Yeah, I'm not sure why they're doing that. Maybe people just don't want to work it. Maybe I heard they're just trying to, these places have like such a high turnover rate because of the mental stress that they just want to like take almost anyone they can at this point, granted some qualifications. That's about it though for this episode. If you enjoy this content, subscribe for more.